Alright guys, thanks for clicking on the video. I have a good episode for you today, how I break down a lake prior to getting out on the water. Now when I'm chasing wintertime smallmouth bass, they can group up in key areas of the lake. Now I'm going to walk you through step by step some of the key features that I'm looking for prior to getting out on the water. Now when I do get out on the water and I roll through several of these spots that I've already deemed successful areas, I'm going to basically just use my electronics to see if I can't find these fish on these areas. Now, if they are in the areas, I'm now looking for at what depth range might these fish be holding at. So say they're sitting in about 25 foot of water. I will then look at the contour line at 25 foot depth range, and if anything like humps, gravel, boulders, channel swings that would be in that depth range, that might be the spot on the spot. And you're going to see in this video, basically Carl and I execute the exact same game plan that I'm going to demonstrate to you right now. Alright guys, so I want to go through with you real quick how I find productive areas on the water prior to going out to fishing in the wintertime for these smallmouth bass. So basically what I do is I use Google Earth, and on the Yough Dam, being that it's a highland reservoir that's used for flood control, you can usually peel back history to kind of find a year where there might have been a drought or they pulled the water down for the winter, and you can really see a lot of the channel swings. You can see a lot of the humps, key features and structures in the body of water. But it is very important to be able to read a contour map, because like for instance Deep Creek here, you can't really see a whole lot of bottom composition. So I'm going to walk you through real quick how to read a contour map. So I'm just going to find a key bank that has a lot of structure to it, and I'm going to overlay a contour map. So basically with the contour map, you're going to see a bunch of different lines indicating different water depths. And then in between each line represents the distance between the water depth changes. So for instance here you can see that there is a greater distance between each line versus over here, which means that this is a steeper drop off versus this, or like this flat and there's a steeper drop off. So in between each line might be 5 feet, and then each line might represent a 2 foot depth. So there might be 2 foot, 4 foot, 6 foot, 8 foot, 10 foot, and in between each depth change of 2 feet might be 10. So there might be 10 feet between each line, representing a 2 foot depth change per every 5 feet going out. Now over here, there might be a 5 foot depth change, but maybe only a foot to 2 feet in between each line. So this is dropping off way faster than this point would be. So that's important to understand, because some of these lakes that you're going to encounter don't have Google Earth where they have a drawdown or a drought that would be able to easily be able to see a lot of this contouring and creek channels and stuff like that. Now I'm going to get rid of the contour lines and basically just go over the key features that I'm looking for in the wintertime when I'm chasing smallmouth. Now one of the important features to try to find is a flat or a long drawn out point that is fairly shallow, that they can get up on in kind of sun or chase bait off of, but it has to have deep water access. So the deep water access is very important, especially like we're located here in Pennsylvania. It could be 50, 60 degrees on Wednesday, and then come Saturday it could be 19 degrees. So these fish don't want to travel very long distances. They want to be able to just kind of pull back off and to get into a more stable water column. So if you can try to find these flats, long drawn out points with deep water access, that's a beginning point. Now if you can find those kind of areas like I have found here that has some sort of structure to it. So here we have big chunk rock that would give habitat for a lot of the bait fish like shad or bluegill that might try to find a little bit warmer water, especially in the wintertime where rock is your friend. This is going to hold heat a lot better than timber would. Now, another key point to not only just structure, but the sun. Does this bank get a whole lot of sun during the day? Now, what I look on Google Earth is I look at how the shade is being cast. So you can kind of tell that the sun obviously was rising over here and then it sets in the west. So this bank should be getting a lot of sun during the day. Now, one of the hard things about the Yough is that this lake is always changing. The depth ranges change just because they're drawing water out of the dam for flood control, or we might get a wet period where the lake might come back up. So just to kind of give you an example where the lake elevation is currently, I'm going to overlay a blue line indicating where the shoreline would be. So even this bank that I had found would hold fish throughout the winter time where the water level is currently. All the features are still in the water. You got your rock still in the water, you got your deep water access, and you have your nice kind of drawn out point flat here. These fish might be staged on either side, and really one of the big key features is current. If there's any kind of wind, it would really kind of set these fish up depending on which way the wind is blowing on either side of this hump. Now I'm going to show you the day on the water where Carl and I found most of our fish. Now, where we were at, there was one key feature, like I just said, was current. Now, on this horseshoe bend point here, it all has the same features basically that I just pointed out. And on the day that we were out here fishing, we rolled around to several different areas that looked very similar, but the main key feature was the current. So what we had were the same features I showed you: big, long, drawn out point with deep water access. You had structure, and then looking at the shade line, you can tell that the sun was coming up, and it basically beats off this bank all day long. Now, the wind was blowing on this day, was coming out of the west, so you were getting a lot of current coming out of the main lake here and wrapping around this point. So you'll be able to see in the video where there is basically a current break. You can kind of almost see where there's a seam with the way the ripples were in the water, and we were sitting back here in the slack water. What I think was going on where a lot of the shad were getting kind of blown in around this point, and these bass were kind of just off this hump. You can kind of see how where it rolls down facing up, and they were just picking off any of the shad that were kind of getting pushed around in the current that was being wrapped around this point. Now on this point you can see that there's a lot of different pieces of structure that these fish were kind of just moving around from structure to structure, and they were basically just feeding on any kind of shad that was getting blown in over here. I hope this kind of breaks down a lot of the questions that I was getting from a lot of the people that watched some of my previous videos when we were fishing out in December. They were asking me how these fish were set up and how I kind of narrowed down my search. So I hope you enjoy the video where Carl and I caught these fish. And if you have any comments, leave them down below. If you enjoyed what you watched, please subscribe and give me a thumbs up. Hope you enjoy the video, and we'll try to make another one kind of like this in the future. Stood up and turned around. Well, you know what? Let's see what happens. That thing. Hey, chomp that thing.